2,000 years later.
So I made a video about Exodus about 7 months ago, I think, going over the game, giving a brief summary of what this game is about, whether it can deliver on its Mass Effect promise, what I'm excited about, and so on. And I'm not going to lie, the weird marketing approach that they took after that made me kind of worry about what is happening behind the scenes, because the silence had been deafening. Until now, that is, since Exodus gave us another Q&A video going over questions that are truly interesting, questions that also gave us more of an idea on how the game will look like, how combat will work, more or less of course, since we can't really be certain until we see actual footage of it, how side quests will be treated, which games influence the creation of Exodus, and we were also promised that we're getting gameplay sometime later this year, and of course they also announced that people can now wishlist the game, which tells us that it is getting closer and closer to release anyway. And since typically games are available to wishlist 6 months or a year before the actual release itself, Exodus will definitely be a 2026 title if everything goes well for them, of course. But let us get back to everything they covered in this recent Q&A. And for your convenience, I'll split this into the more technical aspect of the game, so what they discussed regarding inspiration, exploration, weapons and combat, and then talk about the info they gave us regarding the story, companions, and our protagonist June. So just in case you guys are only interested in specific aspects of the game, but not all, you can skip through the video and listen to the information that you're actually interested in, and in this way you will be spared from the rest of my yapping, I guess. So let us dive in. The studio was created by former Mass Effect talent, something that gave many Mass Effect fans, including myself, hope for this game, since many can still see the Mass Effect DNA present in their work, and also something that they themselves aren't reluctant or shy to admit either. So when asked about their favorite games that inspired them, as they have been working on Exodus, they admitted that Mass Effect is of course a major source of inspiration, but they also mentioned that the combat is closer to Horizon Zero Dawn, meaning it will be heavily dependent on what kind of enemy you're fighting and which weapons, tactics and so on would work best for that specific enemy, and you having to play it smart at times, etc. As for exploration, they have hinted into exploration being incredibly interesting, as we will come face to face with certain obstacles that we will only be able to get through and further explore the area if we find the necessary celestial tech and or have unlocked an ability that will help us further our exploration into said area. So it does sound like exploration will feel much more organic, and it also won't feel like a chore, since we won't be asked to just wander around and get from point A to B aimlessly. The exploration will instead feel much more realistic and enjoyable too, since we will have to interact with the world around us and not just walk and walk from one side of the map to the other without much of a goal in mind. They also went over the extensive amount of tools that will be available to us and briefly went over how one of the weapons, the Recycler, works. A weapon used by salvagers that can use various materials you find, and it will create different resources for you. And they have also said that the weapon can transform as well, so it can now be used for anything, which just goes to show how much imagination, hard work and thought has gone into even the weapons for their game. They truly do seem to love the world they have created, and I'm sure that love will show in the game itself, as often is the case with devs who have a love and passion for what they have created. As far as playstyle is concerned, they have mentioned there will be the choice to play the game in various different ways. They said that their end goal for the game was for different players to experience the game in whatever way they wanted. For example, if someone loves stealth, they can do that. If someone just loves arming themselves to the teeth and just barging in an area, then they can do that. And for those who take their time exploring and talking to characters and reading everything, they can do just that as as well, and thus they might be able to avoid the fight altogether because they talked to the right person before engaging in said fight, which I absolutely love, but at the same time I'm keeping my expectations realistic here as well, because let's face it, I'm not expecting Baldur's Gate 3 levels of playstyle and freedom to do almost everything you can think of, but even if they have just these 3 approaches to the game, they are more than welcome since they truly allow you to roleplay as whomever you want, and this will also help with replayability. Speaking of combat, they also said that their aim with the combat system was to make it both cinematic and strategic, with an emphasis on player choice and how we choose to approach things. But that is not to say that should you choose to be more stealthy with your approach, then that's how the combat will be locked in as. You could, for example, try the stealth approach, get spotted, and then you will have to deal with all that comes along with that, I guess. So we will get a say in how we treat each encounter, how we want to approach it, what tools we will use, how we will choose to solve certain things, and so on. Which is incredible because once again we see they put a lot of emphasis on choice, player choice. And I feel like many RPGs forget that combat approach should be a choice as well, because different players have different playstyles, especially when it comes to combat. The Exodus team certainly hasn't though, which is incredible to hear. Enemy variety is also said to be quite extensive, especially as we explore more and more of the universe in the game, and also because of the rot. We did go over it in the brief overview of the game in my last video about this, but the rot is essentially a force, a technovirus if you will, that seems to be corrupting and destroying all of the technology in our homeworld. So technology-based enemies corrupted by the rot will become progressively more and more challenging to beat as well. So we're talking about both variety in the types of enemies we will have to face, but also the level of difficulty said enemies will have as the game progresses. So now let's go over the information we got regarding the story, the companions, and of course our protagonist June. So, Celestial Remnant technology is what we will be after as travelers, going out into the unknown to find these pieces of advanced technology that can hopefully save our homeworld. The difference here, though, is that up until now, these pieces of technology have been talked about as life-saving pieces of technology, but in the recent Q&A, we were told that things will be a bit more morally complex than that. As we won't just go out there, find the piece of technology in question, return with it, and that was it. We will instead have to decide how and with whom we will use said discoveries. The people said choices will affect might not be as happy with your choices, and our companions will have an opinion on how we should use said discoveries on top of that. So doing A with our discoveries could upset one companion, but doing B could upset another, which I couldn't be more excited about because it sounds like the companions will feel like their own people with their own set of morals, beliefs, standards, and so on. Not just, a cardboard cutout of a companion who is there just to appease and pander to whatever the player wants. An extra layer to this companion like and dislike towards the protagonist will be added through side quests, which thankfully were not treated as filler content, but used to enrich the story and relationships we can develop along the way. We can also do the side quests in order to explore more lore or more of the universe and the world out there, find new cool things and equipment, and so on. They also said that we can choose to help, and I'm guessing not help as well, certain companions depending on whether we like or resonate with them or not. So choice, once again, will be front and center when it comes to this aspect of the game too. The protagonist, June, starts from nothing, but their abilities and confidence will evolve as the game progresses. They also mentioned that while progressing the game, we will find out why June can interact with technology in the way that he or she can. But I was a bit confused about this, and I'm not gonna lie, since And like we went over that video 7 months ago, I thought the reason why is because of our mother's celestial heritage and the fact that we inherited her neural induction ability, which is what allows us to interact with celestial technology in ways that no other human can, because we're half celestial ourselves and all that jazz. But since they're being cryptic about this in the Q&A when they've already given us the information of our heritage, I don't know, I'm thinking maybe there's more to this, or maybe they were trying to keep it spoiler free for those who didn't read the information available on their site, or they want to go into the game blind. I don't know. Either way, I can't wait to find out more about this mysterious reason why. So, as you can tell, all these new answers pointed to one thing, and one thing only being on top of their priority list, and that is, of course, player choice. And that's how it should be, especially when we're talking about an RPG. So everything sounds incredible so far, but I won't know how I feel about everything until I see all of this in action during their promised gameplay showcase and hopefully release date announcement as well later this year. But to be honest, with them being ex-Mass Effect talent, seeing just how passionate they are about the world they've created, their love for so many other games too, is giving me a lot of hope about this being my new Mass Effect. I know I should avoid such comparisons and view this on its merits and not just on what it does better than Mass Effect, but with the way Mass Effect ended and has been getting disgraced ever since Mass Effect 3's notorious endings, I just can't help it. Mass Effect had a very special place in my heart. I want to experience a space opera RPG of equally cinematic and epic proportions as that of one of my favorite childhood-defining games I so loved and adored. And Exodus sounds like it can deliver on just that so far. So I cannot wait to eventually see if everything is as great as it sounds.